And we are live. Hey guys, this is Ruben from Dubb's podcast, Connection Loop. Mark, I wanted to thank you for being here. Thank you so much. I know I had to reschedule. As you know, I broke my hip, and that was a whole fun little affair. But I'm healing very quickly. So thanks again for your patience. Mark,
Glad
if
to
you
hear
could
it.
just start with if you could just start with a quick bio on yourself, and then we can get into it.
Yeah, sure. I do. I'm a video content creator for brands, so video producer for brands. So I kind of help them with their video needs and content. Remotely, I do it, so I don't kind of go to their place and film, although that can be arranged. But I like to create gorgeous, done for you video for brands to help them connect with their audience. So that's what I do. I also consult as well.
Got it. And what do you think attracted you to this space? How did you initially get into this? What was your catalyst point?
Do you know, I was doing sales for a long time, so I used to do recruitment sales for a lot of job boards and job websites and things like that, and then left a particular job. And my half brother said to me, said, you should get into video because you're really passionate about that. I've done various kind of video projects, random video projects all the time while I had a 9-to-5 job. And so my half brother knew that that was kind of my passion. That's what I should be doing. And so I investigated the idea of getting into video. I kind of taught myself video editing, did a thing where you go onto YouTube and you search how to edit using Final Cut or Adobe, and did that, 15-minute video on that. And I thought, I could do this. And then I downloaded, looked at some more videos on YouTube and kind of taught myself editing, some basic content creation, and did the general thing of going on the internet on various websites, learning and teach myself video and try to find myself clients and that kind of thing. But then you had to learn how to find clients. So I had a whole journey with that, and I had to speak to various experts about that and to learn how to find clients and to where I'm at this point where I've got clients, I'm talking to people, and I've got a network of people I can talk to and help service their problems and create their videos. And it's been an enjoyable journey for me to kind of, do something where you can get up in the morning and it's what you're meant to be doing, it's what you're passionate about, and you can really contribute to someone's their goals and contribute back to the world with what you're supposed to be doing. So,
Yeah. And what would you say the biggest problem that we're all solving here with video truly is?
I think there's a kind of misconception that video can be expensive. It's not always the cheapest thing, but it doesn't mean it's expensive. It doesn't provide value. With video allows you to connect with your audience in a way that text can't. And that's not to say text has definitely got a place. I mean, a lot of my posts on LinkedIn are texts because it's just really quick to kind of, you can literally type up a text post in like literally seconds and get it out and get on with it. But video is a great way of connecting with your audience, with connecting emotionally with your audience, and just connecting at a deeper level with your audience so they can get to know you quicker. It's also a good way for them to get a feel of your brand by the way the video is put together, by the way it could be the graphics, could be the way it's kind of the production values and things like that. So so it's getting across that message, and also getting across the message that video has value for any brand or business. There's a lot of businesses that don't use video at all, and they're doing really great. They'll survive without video. But if I added video to their marketing mix, it will, can take their business to another area of opportunity, whether it's revenue-wise or opportunity-wise. So they're a couple of things I've come across.
And what would you say the biggest kind of friction points that you might face are with folks that are new to video? What are some of the objections that you might hear?
Again, it's definitely the cost thing. It's definitely can this fulfill my brand's objectives, and the complexity. They believe it might be complex as well. To kind of, they have an idea that they want to work with an influencer and they need videos to supply to that influencer or what have you, and it could be a complicated issue of getting, maybe they need talent, maybe they need film of their products, maybe they want comedy, and there is a level of complexity, but that's something I take off their heads and kind of figure out a solution and say, look, this is how we're going to solve that issue. This is how we're going to get this done for you. So this is their headache. They've got a business to run. They think they have to think these things through, and that's not what they have to do. It's kind of like you put it onto your video person and they go away and think about it and outsource it or whatever they have to do. So the only thing they need to do is kind of, make sure we've got their ICA nailed down, their audience, who their audience is, what their audience wants to see, what their audience wants to feel or experience with their brand, what their brand stands for, what the mission statement is, what the company values are, those kind of things. Those need to be communicated. The goals of the marketing, the video marketing campaign needs to be kind of, quantified. Is it views? Is it revenue? Is it a combination of above? What are the numbers you need to hit? How are we going to measure that? And also an overall marketing objective for the brand needs to be communicated so we can see how this fits in with everything else they're doing.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, some of the objections that I've heard are that people don't necessarily feel comfortable in the video medium, that they're used to having it be more of a corporate entity. Any type of communication that's done for the business is done in more of an agnostic kind of corporate voice. There's some folks that might suffer from imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
There's some folks that might suffer from this idea that, they should not be the spokesperson. It should be someone else. And then who is that person ultimately? Is it a gun for hire? Is it an actor? Is it the CEO? We're really trying to evangelize this idea that everyone has the opportunity. It doesn't matter really who you are. If you work at a company, if you're working for a common goal, if you have a story to tell, if you're honest and authentic, and you have either simple technology or someone like yourself, Mark, to support them, that they can become a visual storyteller. What is your take on that?
I've come across that. It's not so much an objection for me. I can get around those objections quite easily and just say, you've only got to look at people like Gary Vaynerchuk and people like that. They're using video all day, every day, and they chuck out rough video. And some of the people that get in front of the camera there for that brand and for Gary, they're not professionals in front of the camera, and they just do it, And some of them, they just get behind the camera, and that's all I say to kind of people. Your company, people want to see you. They want to see your company. They want to see your flaws. If they come across on camera, they want to see rough camera work occasionally. If you need to get, if you want to get talent, we can get talent. If you don't want to get talent, we don't have to get talent. Whatever is the truth is the truth, that you need to get in front of the camera. So it's not an objection. It's just making people feel comfortable with, it doesn't have to be corporate, So I think a lot of the brands I deal with, they're not so that corporate in nature, that they're stuck in the past with that kind of mentality. That's quite a traditional value to have. It must be corporate and it must be kind of a bit stiff and a bit stifled. I think a lot of brands these days are aware that kind of there's a lot of leeway now for kind of this kind of film work, this kind of presentation from a style from a certain person and things like that. I think that's it. Imposter syndrome is, again, there are things you can do to help people get through their imposter syndrome. There's little techniques you can do and things like that to help them. And that's just, a confidence builder thing. They need to come across, they need to get over themselves. And that's something, I've got some techniques for that. So, but again, it's a conversation when you speak to someone about video. It's a conversation you're having. You build up the confidence there about all these things you just mentioned. So that's the thing.
Okay, so you mentioned that you have some techniques for imposter syndrome. The last time that I felt imposter syndrome was, there's probably 2 or 3 notable times where I felt it in my life. One of them was I was called to be a keynote speaker in a subject matter that I was not an expert in. And they knew I wasn't a subject matter expert in this topic. They wanted to bring me there because I had a different perspective on it. They were specifically looking for that, but I still felt it.
Yeah.
And I remember that another time that I felt it, another time that I continue to feel it sometimes is if I'm playing music with my band and I start to sing, because I'm just not a singer. I'm a percussionist and I'm sometimes a guitarist. But the second that you put me on a microphone, I feel it dramatically. So I kind of feel comfortable in the background realm. What are some ways that we all can get over that when we feel it?
Some basic ones. I mean, I've just learned about this recently because something, everyone has to deal with it at some level. And it can translate to anxiety, just anxiety. And that could be the root cause is imposter syndrome. There's certain things you can do, which is kind of, you get a pen and paper and you write down all the thoughts associated with the activities you're going to do. So when it comes to singing, I don't think my singing is as good as, Whitney Houston's. That could be a belief that you have. These people will hate me. My haters want me to fail. You write down all the thoughts associated with that. And there's things you do with those kind of thoughts. And you can kind of write down counter thoughts against that are positive. So you can write down a counter thought to, my singing voice isn't as good as Whitney Houston's is, but it's as good as somebody else with my level. It's as good as somebody else with my level is experience or something like that. So, and it's the same in video. So you can do things like that. That takes a bit of time. You sit down and do it. The other thing you can do is brute force, is kind of like just do the activity as much as you can, with a positive mindset. And that's another way you can do it. So there's two things you can do. So, but the writing down with pen and paper and writing down your dysfunctional thoughts is definitely important, because you're not dealing with them. Okay. So you have to dealt with and kind of convert it to something different. Now, when we're talking about video marketing and someone getting in front of the camera, they might not want to do any of this kind of stuff. They might not be into, assessing their beliefs and stuff. So all you need to, in that kind of case, you're just going to, on various calls, you're just going to, build the confidence up and say, look, it's all going to be taken care of. We're going to look after you on a day, and that will alleviate some of their fears, because you're kind of coaching them and cradling them through the experience. So that's what you're going to do, because a lot of business executives won't want to assess their beliefs. So,
Yeah, well said. Well said. So at what point did you get completely comfortable on camera? Was there an unlock moment for you, or was it just something that happened just gradually?
I've kind of, what I've done, I'm not 100% comfortable on camera. It's something, it's not always on demand, and that's the key thing, but what I do is, I did it with brute force. So what you can do, another thing you can do, an executive can do, is we all have cameras in our pockets now, in our cell phones, is get the camera out, once a day and record yourself on camera on your cell phone, and then delete the video, whatever, or look at it, assess the video and assess one thing that you change in the video that you want to improve on, and then do the same thing the next day and try and improve that one thing. So that's one thing you can do. And that's kind of something I did, but not kind of, I didn't do that every day. Just anytime I did a LinkedIn video, I just endeavored to improve on every video. And also I did a rolling take. So instead of stopping the video at the end thinking, oh, that's a rubbish take, just keep the video going and go straight into the next take, and then delete the bad takes in front of the good take that you want to keep. And then you learn far quicker. So that's one thing an executive can do, is kind of to get over their fear of being on camera, because it's exactly the same as the big cameras. It's your imposter syndrome is going to come up on a cell phone camera as it is on a big camera. So that's one way you can kind of help out. So that's what I did. But also I've done various courses and stuff, online courses on Udemy. There's a few courses that cover that area of competence to get good on camera, because it's quite important now to be have this kind of skill set, because now you've got to put video on LinkedIn, you've got put video on YouTube, you've got to build your personal brand. So it's not something, a skill set that you should just kind of let it grow by itself. You should nurture it and grow it to help give your personal brand the best chance of shining. You know.
Yeah, I tend to agree with basically everything you just said. I think of tennis, and I think of when tennis players want to rehearse, they go to the court, and they can do this alone. They can do this with a coach. They can do this with a friend. There's a bucket of balls, and those balls are practices, hundreds, repetition over and over and over again. And a lot of people don't realize that every aspect of our lives needs that type of, repetitive training, getting the kinks out, practicing, rehearsing. That is what makes us good. And frankly, that's what makes us comfortable, but most of us just don't see it. We don't see it when a professional tennis player is practicing. We just see them on the court. We see them winning and just doing it in the way that they're doing it. But it's behind the scenes, really, I think that we all become experts, and I think that's really important to remember.
I think that's so true. And I think one of the key things, so people will not have the time to kind of get good at several competencies they need to get good at. There's not just, being good on camera. It could be something in a business, running a podcast, could be all kinds of things that need practice. So we got a problem. So what do we do? Spend a half an hour practicing on a certain thing, then you're going to neglect something else. So what you need to do is schedule, kind of thin slice it, and then, do 10 minutes, just do one video, and that takes and record 1 minute, and just do 1 minute a day, to do another minute another day, like the next day, and then the day after that. And that's your video practice, and that'll build up. So it's far more important to kind of stretch your practice over time, over days and weeks and months, and to do a whole block in one day, because you're going to get it's going to build into your habit, into your muscle memory much better over time than it is in one day. Your muscle memory won't expand in one day, I find, anyway. So you're trying to really build that muscle memory for all these things, because on camera you've got to kind of, you should be looking at the lens all the time, and sometimes you're going to forget to do that. You should be smiling. You should do vocal exercises to make sure your voice is clear. There's diction and all kinds of stuff you've got to be doing that have to be practiced. So that's not something you're going to do in just half an hour. You're going to learn the basics, but you need to get it into your muscle memory.
Yeah. So tell me this: what is kind of like a nightmare story that you dealt with in video production? The thing that I always think about is that the more variables that there are in something, the more things that can go wrong. And I think that there's some essence and there's some beauty of getting to the simplicity, but with technology, it's hard to attain that, because we're constantly kind of balancing so many factors, so many variables. So whatever you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to learn about some kind of experience that you had, and from which, of course, you learned something great that we could all learn from.
I think it's dealing with clients' expectations, and kind of dealing with what you can do. I'm always learning. I think that's what I love about this. Is kind of, I remember working with a particular CBD brand, and we didn't set the time expectations properly, and this is very early on, that it should have taken a week or whatever to do this project, or 2 weeks or whatever, to properly research and go away and come back with a draft. And the client wanted it back in 2 days. And so I did what I could in 2 days, and it wasn't to the client's expectations. Okay. And then when I look back on it, of course it wasn't. And obviously we came to an arrangement, an agreement, and I got another week or 2 weeks, or I got 4 weeks available time to do it in, and that's when the client was expecting this new deadline. But I did it in a week because I had time to work on it, and it was great to kind of slow down and properly research this particular project, research particular outcomes, the clips, the sounds, and different versions and different drafts. And when I sent it back to the client was just over the moon with joy that the content he received back. I think it resulted in some opportunities, some new for him, because he emailed it out to some potential clients, and you know, so I think that was my kind of big, not so much lesson, but kind of, well, yeah, lesson in the fact that when you get time to kind of really craft the project, that's where I'm in my zone, and the best work is kind of comes out for the client and yourself, you know. So that's one thing I do remember. And yeah,
setting the expectations, it's, oh God, that's always a tough one. One of the things that I've suffered with in my life, and I think we all have, and I think it's all in the spirit of progress, and it's all in the spirit of feeling comfortable, which is getting into that editing cycle where edit number 1, edit number 2, edit number 10, and it's just continually going. And sometimes I pause and I ask myself, I said, why are we in this editing cycle here? Is it because ultimately we're not comfortable with something? Is there something that's off? You know, are we using editing as a crutch? You know, are we just buying time? You know, or is it ultimately that we're developing something that we just haven't built the brand flavors for? We don't know what our voice is yet. We don't know what the look and feel is. And this is sort of experimenting. And I think for me, what I've come down to is that if each additional incremental project takes less time, assuming it's the same production value, then we're on the same path. But if we're continually taking the same amount of time and it's actually going the opposite direction and taking more time, then there's some deeper issue that needs to be resolved. What is your take on that?
I mean, that's the kind of thing I work on. I mean, I know what you mean, but it's something I'm always working on. But the thing is, like, my plan is to kind of, I'll be pushing this work out to other people, and only doing select work myself. So I've got to learn to communicate that to others. Okay. But in the meantime, it's learning how to do things within a set amount of time, because, you know, you'll have several clients and the work takes a minimum amount of time. Like, I can work very fast, but I've got to make sure that work will satisfy what the client is after. And you're right. If doing the work in the same amount of time, but it's getting kind of, it's getting worse. The kind of more you do it at the same amount of time, there's something wrong. So it's something I'm always looking to, how do I improve the situation, because I'm running a business here and I can't be doing that. We can't be allowing those kind of slope in progress in how I work go down, you know. So and that's what I struggle with, is figuring that out and making sure I get good. So one of my plans is kind of later on in the year is kind of, I've got some mentors for business, but also get some mentors who are doing really great creative work. You know, I've got a list of people who I'm going to get in touch with, because I always love to learn and really improve the kind of the creative workflow and the formulation of ideas, to turn those ideas into a video project, and ultimately increasing the value to my clients, and also taking that knowledge to the people who I'm going to employ, to say, okay, this is how I want the videos that we to produce to come across, like, you know, the aesthetic value and those kind of things. So yeah, I agree with everything you say, and that's kind of something I'm always working on. It's kind of a little bit of a paranoia, but a healthy paranoia, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think it's getting ahead of a potential problem, you know? Cool. Well, where can folks find you? I know you're very active on LinkedIn, social media. Give us your handles, your website address.
You can go to markwethers.co.uk. You can email me there. That's probably the most you can do there at the moment. You can also at Mark Weathers for Twitter, but on LinkedIn, just grab me on there and send me a DM. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Mark. I encourage folks to connect with Mark on LinkedIn and social channels. Thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Ruben. Take care.
Be well.